So anything you need in those spaces, she's the one to tap into. So we appreciate Georgia and all that she provides for our team. I'm gonna turn it over to her, and I'll be moving the slides along. Georgia, just let me know.
Thank you. Oh, wait, take me back to the title because
Oh.
I have something to say about it.
Mhm.
I cannot write a quippy title, so I need you to forgive me for the cheesiness of this title, which is looking back, looking forward, what's next for your school team. So this session came about from feedback that you all gave us on your session feedback forms and your echo request, where you were like, ooh, we've learned all these things. I need you to put this back together for us so that we can understand what we need to do. We have all the knowledge now. Now, what are the things we need to do? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Sorry that we couldn't get you a more exciting presenter from the outside. You're stuck with me today. So our objectives are that after today's session, you'll be able to summarize the content and resources from school team training in year one. So you already did all that training, but holy smokes, it's a lot of stuff, right? So we really wanted to get organized for ourselves and for you to recap what happened there. And then you'll be able to describe the phases of implementation that are going to occur in year two. So we made you a pretty simplified roadmap of what that's going to look like. And then you'll be able to identify concrete next steps to move forward toward implementation before the end of this school year. So what needs to happen between now and when the summer begins, the students leave, some of you get to leave, some of you don't. So what needs to happen between now and then to make sure you're in a good space when your team comes back together for the next school year? So the overview, we're going to go through what we did, the content and the tools this year. We're going to talk about the plan for next year, and then you're going to leave here with a few concrete next steps. I don't want you to say, oh, we already have that list you made for us. No, you're going to have the things that you and your team need to do next. Then you can come back to the list. Okay, so you've seen this before. Hey, Maya or Crystal, will you start a timer for me? I want to make sure that I'm not eating up all of our time. I'm going to plan to be done by 12:30. Okay, so you've seen this before, but it was probably a long time ago. So I want to reintroduce you to this MTSS-B infrastructure kind of model. And the idea is you can't have MTSS-B if you don't have these three pillars. The first is your foundation. And so that's the stuff that you've put together on your teams, right? Creating the team, creating those products like your definition, your flow chart, your matrices. That was really the foundation. Then we had implementation. That's where you're thinking about the practices that you're going to install in your school, or you might already have in place. You're thinking about how you're actually going to teach people to do the things you want them to do, the grown-ups and the children. And you're thinking about, okay, what are our routines going to be for reviewing to understand if it's working? And then we have the green pillar, which is sustainability. So how are we giving people feedback and acknowledging what they're doing? What's our fidelity data? You know, that's our F word of choice, fidelity. How do we know we're doing the things we said we were going to do? And then how are we completing our annual evaluation and making database decisions? If you don't have all three of these, you don't have an MTSS-B infrastructure, and it's overwhelming. It's a lot all at the same time. And so we're going to help break this down for you to show you what we've covered so far and what needs to keep happening. This is another version of the same graphic, but the text is a lot bigger. So I wanted to include it in this slideshow for the sake of accessibility. I also want to highlight for you that we've aligned these to the TFI items. So if you were in our Greenville training group for day 3, you did some TFI planning time where you picked out a couple of TFI or tiered fidelity inventory items that you want to prioritize focusing on. These are, this is a helpful way to see what buckets those pieces fit into. So I just wanted to draw your attention there. If you haven't had your day 3 training yet, you will, and we'll talk about it then. So those pillars were color coded, right? Foundation is light blue, implementation is orange, sustainability is green. You're going to continue to see that same color coding structure throughout what we're going to talk through. So there we go. So on day 1, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we did on day 1, way back in September. You were either at Furman or you were at that state park down in Charleston to like jog your memory of where we were. The internet did not work either place. So if you remember the frustrations of that experience, we were all there together. And so all of the problems, exactly. So we covered mostly foundational components, actually all foundational components on that day, right? What is MTSS-B? What's going on with your team? And what do we mean when we say contextually appropriate behavior? And then you had two big action items. You needed to develop a school-wide matrix, and you needed to start working on your behavior definitions. Then we had an echo. Keep going. Then on day 2, we taught you some behavior shaping practices or responses, the first 3. We introduced coaching cycles, and we talked about the practice inventory. And you had 2 big action items. Implement a professional learning about one of those behavior shaping practices, and plan for how you were going to collect practice data. So you might have done a practice inventory, you might have used one of our Google Forms, you might have collected that information a different way. Then we had an echo. Then we had day 3. Asterisks, you may not have had day 3 yet, but this is what is covered at day 3, whether you've been there or whether it's coming soon to a town near you. So we covered how you would actually teach your school-wide matrix. So it's not enough to just have it and hang it up, right? Then it becomes wallpaper. How are you actually instructing people on how to use and implement the matrix? And then we taught you 3 additional behavior shaping practices and gave you the resources to deliver those to your staff. And then we did some TFI action planning, the tiered fidelity inventory. And then we spent some time working on team meetings and what it means to have really effective team meetings now that you understand this work. And then you had 2 action items to think about how you would teach about your matrix, and then to continue to implement the things that you outlined in your TFI action planning. And now we're having another echo. Are you sensing a pattern? All right, next slide. So this takes us a little deeper into what was covered at day 1 and what we taught, what the action items were that were aligned to that, and then the materials. Don't feel like you need to screenshot this. We're going to share a resource with you at the end of this presentation to take with you to kind of refer back to. So when we talked about the MTSS-B in overview, you got a slide deck. And then during the processes and agenda, you got a team meeting agenda that had a lot of supports in it, specifically around team roles and the definitions of each of those roles. And then when we talked about foundations of behavior, you had a team planning guide. All these things are back in the folder, and we can help you find them if you need help. And then when we were talking about building these pieces, your definitions, your flowchart, your matrices, those eventually end up in your Tier 1 school manual. And if you're anything like me, you forgot about that because Crystal mentioned it to me recently, and I said, oh my gosh, you're right. They are supposed to put that in the team manual. So even on our team, we're being reminded of things that we forgot we talked about on previous days and resources we forgot we built. So building out this didactic was helpful to us too. Okay, so then we did Tier 2. Or excuse me, day 2. We have not done Tier 2. And when we talked about behavior shaping responses, we gave you a folder for each one of those practices, right? You got a slideshow that you could deliver, you got a handout in a 1-pager, and you got a coaching guide for every single practice. When we were talking about the coaching cycles, again, you had those coaching guides that align to each individual practice. And then when we talked about the practice inventory, you got the practice inventory Google Forms. And then as a reminder, there's additional supplementary material for each of those specific practices within the coaching guide. So we wanted to align the things that we covered with the things that we gave you as a reminder. All right, take me to day 3. All right, so day 3, we covered a lot of stuff on day 3. It was really hard to fit it all on this slide. So when we talked about the school-wide teaching matrix, that's covered mostly as part of the Basque slide deck because that was really direct instruction for you. What do you need to get in place to deliver your matrix to your school staff? Then with the behavior shaping practices, again, you got a folder for each practice. So the slideshow, the handout, the 1-pager, and the coaching guides. For the TFI action planning, you got your TFI data, which is super helpful, but then you also got the TFI action planning guide, which has the breakdown of how to interpret the data, and then each of the components where you plan through how you might address it. And then when we went through team meetings, we gave you a team agenda, which you've had for a while. And then we gave you a sample agenda that showed you what it might look like if it was being used the way we hope that it's being used. And so this aligns again back to your action items, developing those lessons for how to deliver your school-wide matrix and reviewing norms and skills. And then your TFI action plan, which is your roadmap that you developed about what you want to address in your school first. And then your team meeting, that during that time you started slotting in things for future meetings that you wanted to address. Phew, We did a lot this year. Let's talk about what happens in year 2. Again, using the same color coding. So for year 2, over the summer or before the first day of school, you will do, again, some of this foundational stuff, right? You're going to review who's on your team, what they do, what their roles are, what the norms are for your meeting. You're going to establish your schedule for when you're going to meet. You're going to review your behavior data from this school year. And then you're going to finalize your foundation documents and tools. That's your matrix, your definitions, your flowcharts, those kinds of things. You want to get them in pretty good working order to be ready to implement them during the school year. You're also going to do some implementation support here where you're planning for the professional learning and coaching that you're going to deliver throughout the year, getting it on the calendar, adding it to your PL calendar, thinking about the best way to address it. And you're going to identify your focal practices using data. So you're not going to train on all 6 practices that we've built out for you right away. You're going to use your data to help guide which ones you want to prioritize first. Then you're going to get an echo. Then in the fall, and this will be ongoing throughout the fall, you'll be holding your monthly team meetings where you'll be reviewing your behavior data. You'll be doing your initial implementation of the matrix and the classroom and the school-wide matrices, including that direct instruction that you're building out. How do we teach people about using these tools? Then you'll provide professional learning on whichever practices you identify. You'll also conduct self-assessment survey data in the spring, just like you did in the fall, just like you did last year. So we'll build you a survey, we'll share the link, and your school staff will complete it. And then you'll monitor the use of coaching via the coaching guide. So you can look through those tools and see, how do we want to observe this? Do we want to use self-assessment? Do we want to use peer observation? Do we want to use the walkthrough tool? There's things in there that you can use to monitor that usage. Then you're going to have an echo. Then in the spring, you're going to keep holding those monthly meetings where you'll review behavior data. You'll be implementing your matrices and providing additional direct instruction as needed. You'll be providing professional learning on the practices you've identified. You'll conduct the TFI, and if you remember the tiered fidelity inventory, only the people on your school team complete that. So we're not going to survey your school staff to death. This one's just for the school team. And then you'll monitor the use of your practices with the coaching guide. And then finally, we'll have a process for how you'll share annual behavior data with our team. And we'll walk you through that and show you what to do. So this is like a big breakdown of how you'll spend next year. Take me to the next slide. Okay, so I want you to think about right now, what do you need to do before the end of the school year to be ready to start doing some of those things? Take me to the next slide. Thank you. We're going to share this on a Padlet, but I want to run you through what a Padlet looks like first, so you know where to type in what to do. So at the very top of your Padlet post, when you press the plus button, you'll type a title. Don't type all your text in there because it'll cut it off and we won't be able to read it. Then you will fill in, the body of your text. You can also edit afterwards. If you look on the right side of your screen, you'll see there's an edit button with the blue arrow if you need to change something or add more detail. And then you can upvote people's things or make a comment if that is something that feels right to you. So I'm going to put the link in the chat for you. And then Maya, would you pull up? Why is it not letting me paste? That's frustrating. Hold on, friends. I'm going to have to go pull the link again. If Maya, while you're screen sharing, if you would pull up the Padlet, that would be awesome. So you're thinking about what are some things that you need to do, and we have them organized into those same buckets: foundations, implementation, sustainability, and then we have an other. And if you're thinking, Georgia, I really wish that I could see those graphics while I try to think about what I need to do next, I've included screenshots of them in that section called reference images that you can click and look at while you think about your plan. So I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes and let you start adding a couple of things here. Maybe you add 1 to 2 things that you and your team need to do before the end of the school year to be ready to move into this next phase. So I'll confess that I am the agile orca here. To get feedback from staff on behavior definitions, that's an example from a school that I visited this week that came up in a meeting. So I don't know if they're on the call, but I added that in here on behalf of them because that's a really actionable small thing that they can handle before the end of the school year to get ready to have that ready for next year. Ooh, I love seeing review the data after you trained on your first behavior shaping practice. Brilliant. Super helpful. Ooh, map the plan. Absolutely. Oh, this looks like it probably came from a district behavior coordinator. Meet with each school team to see where they're at and what they need. Absolutely. Absolutely. Evaluate the behavior data to help keep teachers on track. Absolutely. Get their feedback for future enhancements. Definitely. Feel free to bookmark this Padlet and add to it over time. I'll continue to check it at least throughout this week. So if you need support, we can circle back and see what you need. It's helpful for us to know what you need to do next, so we know what to support you with, what kind of case studies or problems of practice to pull into our echo, what kind of didactic presenters to bring in. We really do adjust to your feedback. So if there are places where you're getting stuck or you need help, please tell us, and we will make sure that you get what you need. All right, Maya, will you take me back to my slideshow? Thank you so much. Okay, so this is as promised. We broke this down for you, obviously, in this slideshow that you have access to. And so those simplified graphics can be very helpful, but we've also built out this professional learning breakdown and resource gallery for you that reviews what happened in year one, talks about where we're going in year two, and includes some of those simplified graphics that were in this slideshow. It's linked for you in the document for this echo where we drop all the recordings and everything, but I will also, oh, Crystal already linked it. I was going to link it for you, but Crystal already did. So that document is linked on the page and anything we share in the echo is shared there. If you know me, you know that I don't like to print things out, but this is one that I will be printing out and writing on and highlighting and referencing in my meetings with GBCs and school teams, because I think it's a really simplified way to get organized about what we've covered and what we need to do next. So you know that I think it's helpful. I didn't build it, but you know that I think it's helpful if I am actually going to print it out. So I would recommend that for you as you start thinking about what's next for your school team, is taking a peek at this and assessing what have we completed and what do we need to circle back to. All right, so as you prepare for year two, here's the stuff we recommend you do first. So I told you you'd get some recommendations. Use these as you see fit. We recommend you finalize your matrix, your behavior definitions, and your behavior flow chart before the school year starts. So right now, getting that in place as you think about your plan for delivery, make sure that those documents are in good shape. Then start thinking about how you're going to teach students, staff, and community members about these documents. How are you going to teach them what they're for, how to use them, etc. Identify changes needed to your school team. Are people leaving? Are people getting promoted? Are people going to be out on parental leave? Like, what kind of things adjustments will need to be made for your school team for next year? It's helpful to think about that now. Set the schedule for monthly team meetings for next year. Make this a priority and get it solidified on your calendar so you don't have to work around all the other things that are going to fill up on that school staff calendar between now and then. Review your TFI data and the TFI action plan that you worked on day 3, and schedule time to focus on each one of those things. Make sure that it's in your meeting agenda so that you're circling back to it and thinking about it. And then review the action items on that tab in your agenda. So there's a tab in your spreadsheet version of your agenda called February/March PL. And in there, we broke down all the do outs by TFI item. So they're all aligned for you. And these were all the things we could think of. There's probably more. But if you start with those and start ticking those off the list, you will be in good shape. So this is where we recommend that you start. If you already have all these things done, I am so happy for you. And there's still more work to be done, and your DBC can help you identify what to do next. All right, that's all I've got. What questions do you have? It's exactly 12:30. I'm feeling very proud of that. What questions do you have? Well, if you come up with a question, you can feel free to message or email me or reach out to your DBC or your BASC point of contact, and we can get you connected with whatever you need. Thanks for coming with me on this journey of trying to make this very, very big, complicated process feel a little more approachable.
Thanks, Georgia.